Hi everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. Today, what we're going to be discussing is the impact of ResearchOps. And I, for one, am very excited to be having this conversation because the impact of ResearchOps has been coming up again and again in my conversations with clients. So I'm really excited to learn from Pedro on this topic. And I think, first of all, it's worth acknowledging that I'm super grateful that we're having this conversation about the impact of ResearchOps because it signals how far ResearchOps as a function has come. I remember having calls with ResearchOps folks, a number of years ago, and it was seen primarily as an administrative and support function for the research teams. And I think that organizations are more and more so recognizing the impact of ResearchOps, but we are still in the nascent stages of doing so. And so learning more about what that means and how we can better measure it and advocate for the ResearchOps community within our workplaces. So I'm thrilled to be joined today by Pedro Vargas, who is a ResearchOps leader and mentor, currently leading ResearchOps at Banco do Brasil. And Pedro has spent years connecting the dots between research operations, leadership, and measurable outcomes. His approach centers on showing how ResearchOps can go beyond output metrics to demonstrate real influence. And that's certainly why I've signed up to this webinar as well. So looking forward to seeing what that means. And today we will be exploring how ResearchOps can demonstrate meaningful impact and beyond those output or throughput metrics, which I keep hearing being mentioned. And we'll be using data to tell a compelling story, building trust with leadership, and leading teams with empathy and confidence in complex, high-stakes environments. By way of introduction, my name is Harry Thomas. I was previously a UX researcher at Facebook and the co-founder of a business called Respondent, which some of you might be aware of. And I'm now proud to be Chief of Staff at Great Question. And for those of you who aren't familiar with Great Question is an all-in-one customer research tool. We make it easy to do everything from recruiting the right people, whether they're customers or non-customers. You can run all of the methods on Great Question. We've recently added card sorting and tree testing, and also, cover all the other things like interview surveys, prototype tests. And we currently work with companies like Dropbox, Brex, Amazon, Intuit, and many more. So that's it by way of intro, but just a bit of house cleaning. So if you do have any questions throughout the webinar, please put them into the chat there. Great to see everybody already getting active in there. We will have plenty of time at the end for questions of Pedro. We may also cherry pick some of those questions throughout the conversation too. So this is meant to be an interactive webinar. Please ask questions, get engaged and involved. And our wonderful producer, Carly, will also be on the chat and helping surface some of those questions too. So that's it in terms of housekeeping. So let's turn over to Pedro. So Pedro, as I mentioned in the lead up, you now lead ResearchOps at Banco do Brasil, whilst also doing a ton of mentoring, you run courses, write books, you're doing, very active in blogs and webinars. Can you tell us a bit about your journey and what drew you to ResearchOps and how you ended up in the space?
Sure. Thank you so much, Harry, Carly, who is in the backstage working for us. I'm very happy to be here once again in a webinar with Great Question, and mainly to talk about this topic that I really love, which is to uncover and to clarify that ResearchOps needs and has its own impact. Of course, it's very dependent on UX research, on the UX research discipline and everything that is being done by designers and writers, people who do research in the end, but we need to talk about it, so I'm very happy. So when I look back, like in my journey, I see that the first time I had contact with ResearchOps was in my first position as a solo UX researcher. I didn't know about it like at that moment, but now I know it. Now I know that I did some ResearchOps initiatives, mainly focused on repositories. Like it was not a repository at that time. I usually call it a catalog, a research catalog. It was an Excel file with links and metadata and descriptions and reports. It was a mess, but it was we usually say in Brazil, like an organized mess.
Mm,
Uh, it used to work, but at that time, I needed to do research as well. That was my main function. Like I needed
mhm,
to interview
mhm,
customers. I needed to moderate tests and all those things. And in the end, the research ops tasks were not like priority for me. But I did some stuff there. Um, like it was in 2018, the same year as we had this initiative, this global initiative that gave a name, an official name for Research Ops, led
mm.
by Kate Tozzi and the Research Ops community. So it was in this first moment. That's why I didn't know at that time that I was doing Research Ops. But today, like I I coordinate a team of 4 people focused on research ops. Of course, we have other tasks, like once we are in what we call a center of excellence in UX, we look for best practice in UX, but focused on research. Um, but yeah, I have this team today. It's not common to see teams like this in Brazil, and I can say it in for Latin America as well. Like 4 people taking care of research ops, and in my bigger team, we have like 17 people taking care of operations and governance
Mm.
for the entire bank. And it's very like I don't know what would be if we didn't have like a team like this in the bank today because we have more than 600 designers here. So it can be a mess if we don't have these patterns, these guidelines, trainings, and processes like very clear for everyone to follow. So yeah, it's a challenge. I'm seeing the chat. It's a lot of
Mm.
people, 600 designers. And there's also like a more complex thing behind that because once Bank of Brazil is a public bank, there are people that comes from other teams, so we need to onboard them in UX more than in research. So it's crazy. It's crazy because it's the most traditional bank in Brazil. It's a centenary, like hundreds of years, and we have this all these legacy challenges as a traditional company has. So we face these challenges, but we are in a very good community inside it. For example, now we know that in our training sessions, we have people from security attending.
Mm.
And it's
Mm.
crazy when we generate the reports, like we have people from the legal team joining the trainings of like, for example, how to generate better research reports. And it's crazy
Mm.
because everyone is looking for knowledge about research or knowledge management in general. So yeah, that's it.
I mean, I think that you touched on a number of like really interesting points there. The first one being kind of the transition and formalization of the research ops function, and the joke internally is that research ops, you don't choose research ops chooses you. And I think that that seems to have been a bit of the case here. We've kind of fallen into it somewhat. But then the other thing is just around the research democratization and the growing interest of research within organizations. And we're seeing that globally with all of our clients at Great Question. And so when you mentioned, oh, we've got a team of 5, I was like, oh man, that's sick. Like 5 people, that's great. And then you're like 600 designers. And so you've got this like 1 to 120 ratio of support model. And it sounds like that's only growing. But are there plans to continue growing the research ops function uh, at, at work as well? Or do you think about those proportions of people that you service? How do you think about the changing needs and the changing profile of the individuals that are interested in research and how your team needs to grow alongside those?
So first of all, just to answer Alan's question, how many researchers? We don't have the right number because imagine there are 600 people in different silos, in different teams. So we expect to have more than 30 UX researchers. Um, and it's really crazy to think about it because like we tried to create how can I translate it? It's called like an ambassadors program. So to use these UX researchers as ambassadors of what we're doing
Mm,
here for their teams, their centers, their unities. We also like have people from other centers of excellence. For example, we have people from the Center of Excellence in Product, Center of Excellence in Processes, in Operations. And it's crazy because we, operations folks, we're not in the Center of Excellence of Operations. We are inside of the Center of Excellence of UX. So yeah, it's crazy. The proportion, like this ratio, I think like it's never my view on this is like it's never enough. But once again, comparing with everything that I see in Brazil and mainly in Latin America, I think we are very lucky
mm.
to be working in a company with this amount of researchers, not mentioning the writers. We have people dedicated on that as well. So yeah, that's my take on it.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And um, I think you keep qualifying it with saying that we're lucky, in Latin America. And I think you're lucky we're in the world, really. Any function, focus, any company that recognizes the impact of this function and is willing to invest in it. And so when it comes time to think about hiring more resources for your team, Pedro, how do you go about making that case to leadership that, hey, we need more research ops folks in the team to support the growing interest in research? What does that business case look like?
Yeah, so that's something I really like to talk about because it makes me, it reminds me a moment when I did a research project that the main stakeholders were the high, like the the main directors in the company. It was not in the bank, it was in another company.
Mm,
And we did a very big and detailed report with the findings and insights and recommendations and everything. And when we shared this report with the directors, they saw it. They gave us kudos and claps and so many things, but in the end, they did nothing because
mm,
this report was like specific. This one specifically was not in their language. It was back there in 2018, 2019. Um, why am I telling you this right now? It's because I see that's the same. If we don't create things that are in the language of our stakeholders, of the decision makers, we're not going anywhere.
mm,
So first of all, to sell research ops internally, I need to show them that the investment they're making in our team right now, in our efforts, in our initiatives, the confidence they're putting in our projects, it's like it's it worth. Like it really gives us results and things that we can show the value.
mm,
So first of
mm,
all, right now, we are not, I need to say that we're not looking for anyone in the team. We have a very big project running today. But um, if I had this challenge to hire someone or increase something, I would show our metrics that we collect every month. We divide them into tactical ones. Also, we have the operational ones. We need to capture and collect operational data as well, and also the strategic ones. This is something
mm,
that was I think it was the main connection I had with great question when I mentioned before in a previous webinar about the researcher for effort score. That's something that it's now a KPI in the bank. So we
Oh, well,
made it. It's more than a KR. It's an KPI. So the heads, the directors, the senior managers are looking for this result in particular, which is like a combined metric to know how much if like the researchers, the designers, the writers are finding easy or difficult to do research tasks, basically, inside the journey. They have like to look for a research in a repository, to recruit a participant after a consultancy service that we have. By the way, we have this consultancy service. It's a service, an internal service that everyone in the bank can like fill a form and ask for advice and help more dedicated into their projects. So yeah, it's a lot of stuff, but we need to show the numbers, we need to show the results, we need to show the graphs, we need to show everything before we ask for something.
absolutely. That makes a ton of sense. And something that stood out to me in my career as a UX researcher, and something that made sense, was the impact of a UX researcher is the delta between whether it would have ended without research intervention and where it did end up, the result of research intervention. That gap was the impact of research. And when I think about research ops and the impact that research ops can have in that part, you mentioned it there. It's really about velocity and speed and ease of distribution, ease of completion rather. But one thing that I think you touched on that's interesting is around making sure that the insights that are delivered by the researchers, appropriate for the audience that they're being delivered to. Could you dig into that a little bit more and tell me how you think about matching research insights with audiences and research ops role in that responsibility?
Yeah. So first of all, research ops impact is a combination of research ops and also UX research impact. If we
Mm,
don't help or like assist UX research teams for them to collect or to look for their impact, the research ops impact is not like
mm,
complete. We need to help the teams to track their impact. What we did in the bank and we are still doing, it's like a long-term challenge, a long-term project. We developed a simple spreadsheet that it's like the the template, it's similar as the one I shared in my previous article here in Great Passion. I think Carly will share this one too in the chat. Please, Carly, if you can help me with that. Um, so we created this simple spreadsheet because, as I told you before, we have a lot of people in different teams, different levels of maturity, different levels of knowledge about tools. So a spreadsheet is like the key one. We created this template. Um, we show them how to look for their impact. We gave trainings in a very small group of researchers. It's like a pilot. It's something we built together with the community. And they are now tracking their impact, like their research project's impact. So, for example, how many changes were done in the product after in a specific research project? How many um,
mm.
stakeholders joined research sessions in a specific project? This is how we see impact right now. We also
Interesting.
have a bigger challenge that we are not in this challenge right now, but I have to say it, which is to understand, for example, how is the conversion rate after the product team implemented two insights that came from a specific research project. We are not in
Mm.
this level yet. I've done this in previous companies, but in the bank, we are like step by step. This is also like, I can say this first spreadsheet is already such a very big thing for us.
Yeah, amazing. And um, to the point that you were just making there around effectively getting to the point of citations, essentially for the research functions, that's for us, that's an aspiration thing, a great question as well. And we're obviously a much smaller organization than you are at the bank, because it requires so many additional strings attached. You need people to be citing the research when making product decisions. They need to know that the research exists. They need to know that these insights can be applied. But we've got a question from Natasha around ideas around measuring qualitative research when it's related to intangible outcomes. So you mentioned a couple of specific metrics there around attendees for the calls, people reading the outputs. But does it differ between qualitative and quantitative metrics, or and can you share any more specifics on that particular measurement piece?
Yeah, I really love this one. That's how for my understanding, and it's like written in the last link that Carly shared in the chat,
Black
which
box.
is the
Yeah.
last article. That's how I divide like research projects outcomes from research projects metrics. The outcomes can be like a ton of stuff, like a lot of things. What happened? The main question is what happened after the stakeholders or our customers. Let's remember that our customers are the stakeholders for a research project, of course. So what they have done after we delivered a report, and we are just like we will just have this answer by knocking on their doors, like after 1 month, 2 months, 3 months.
Mm.
Like we need to do this kind of research internally as well. If we don't do that, we won't we will end up not knowing everything.
Yeah.
And of course, also doing that, we won't know everything that is happening because people will think about it, people will be biased by some finding or some insight we generated by a research project, and we won't have a clue about it. This is the magic of qualitative research or research in general. We want to
Mm. Mm.
know all kinds of impact. That's why in the bank, in that spreadsheet I mentioned, we defined some types of impact. There are a lot of there are more types of impact. The list in your company can be like huge, but for us, we defined, I think they are like 6 or 7 types of impact. And we want to know these types of impact. Like in the spreadsheet, I think it's very organized. The ideas, the types, and the descriptions. But also like these hard numbers, as Natasha mentioned, they are very important. But for us right now, it's more like it's not something we want to do right now, strategically speaking, because we have different, as I told you before, we have different teams with different maturity levels. We need the base ready for us to grow our conversation about these hard numbers. For now, we are stuck with this spreadsheet.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. And the spreadsheet is worth checking out if you haven't yet read that. Carlos put it in the chat. I think a couple of things to tease apart there. I love the framing of the stakeholders as your customers, because then suddenly in that context, doing research with your customers becomes a no-brainer for you. Like, yeah, of course I do research with my customers. And so that kind of slight and subtle mindset shift can make a huge difference. But then I also like the concept of putting in the work in order to advocate for your success and impact by proactively doing a research study to extract the impact of the work there. But one tension that I can see developing, and again, Natasha's spoken to this in the chat as well, is that impact is often a lagging indicator of work that you have conducted previously. And as you said, the work we did is 1 month, 2 months before that impact can be seen. And secondly, it can be hard to engage stakeholders in those customer communications to tell you about the impact that they've seen as a result of their research projects. UX researchers are busy, like they're often, the last to hire, servicing lots of needs. And so how do you think about when is the appropriate time to conduct this research? And how do you engage your customers, the stakeholders, the UX researchers, designers, anybody else around the business in wanting to participate in those interviews with you so that you can extract the impact insights?
Good question. I
Great,
totally agree
great
with
question, Pedro.
Natasha. Yeah, great question. Love that. I love that. So it's a good thing that Natasha shared as well, that it's hard to get these customers to chat again and to track the impact. Um, the answer is that it's hard, but if we don't see that just to generate the report is leading us to get the impact of what we're doing, we need to do more. And I know that there are like more activities, more tasks for us. And I know that we researchers or reops folks will have a lot of things to do, but
Mm,
it's a I don't like to say that because everyone say it like this, but it's like a mindset change that we need to know or to understand or to embrace. That is like the research finishes, the project finishes only when we get to know the impact of it or the lack
mm,
of impact of it. And the lack of impact is already something very important for us because we have prioritized something that was not priority in the end. So something is not happening. They told me to research for something. We generated a lot of insights and findings, and we shared a lot of quotes. We shared a lot of things with the stakeholders, and they ended up doing nothing. This is like a high level conversation that we and also mainly our managers and directors they need to know because something is not working. I had like this experience sometimes. I think every researcher had an experience like this in their lives. But yeah, that's it. Like we need to look for the impact and like being practical about it. When you present, I usually give this tip, like when you present the research findings in a meeting or when you share the report with your team, with the stakeholders, or you can already schedule a meeting with the main stakeholders for a month. Like you don't need to schedule like a 1 hour meeting. It can be a 15 minutes meeting, like just to know what
mm,
happened.
mm.
And also if you understand that, if you know that anything happened yet after 1 month, it's already maybe a red flag for this
Yeah.
project. And then you get to know like, okay, if I want them to make it happen, I need to move my pieces here. I need to move my game so the research won't be forgotten in the repository.
Yeah, that's so true. And I think the point you made at the top was that like the absence of insights is an insight in and of itself, in this game that we're playing. And the other thing that I think is worth pointing out is that if you're in control of the systems, you can implement the system to support the extraction of those insights that you need. And the point that you made was, well, the research isn't done until the impact of the insights is known. And so I love that as like a control on the research function. And similarly, in my experience as a researcher at Facebook, it was like, not until the insights had been uploaded and then we'd published and we had all of this rigmarole and forms that were required in order to close it out. And this sounds like a similar sort of control mechanism, which I love. But a question that I have for you in this intervening period is, how do you build trust with leadership whilst you're, inverted commas, waiting for the impact of that research or research project to be known? What does it, is that a communication practice? Is it a reporting practice? What does it look like to maintain trust in interstitial periods?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so my answers can go by like two ways. The first one is the the reality I am right now. So I'm super on the backstage. In the Center of Excellence, we are not doing research at any level. We're
Mm.
just supporting the researchers and the people who do research. But back then, when I was a researcher, something that I learned by making a lot of mistakes, of course. Um, so back then, we wanted, and like every time that the company was talking about strategy, like the CEO or a C-level or a director of strategy or something like this, we we used to make a way to share some research findings and to like I don't know how to say it, but it's like to be there in some way. And it brings us to this word that I don't see us talking about very often, which is strategy.
Mhm.
Um, so we need to understand and study, why not study the company strategy, to know if what we're doing is connected with the strategy, with the initiatives, with the objectives, with the KRs. I don't know, like so many terms and words about that. But um, we also need to be there and to represent our unit, our field, our function in a smart way. It's not like just sharing things on Slack. Like it's not just sharing links on Slack, on Teams, and okay, we've done this, we know this. But like when you have like this door open to talk about something, please do it. Um, it's something that sounds very simple, but it's not because we need to pay attention on what's happening. For example, in all hands meeting with everyone in the company, someone mentions that um, a a result is decreasing or is increasing. That's the moment, if you can, of course, you can share something that happened during a research or if there's a finding or not. What else? We have like, I think the majority of companies, they have like this meetings and rituals, agile stuff that present the results and present the next OKRs and the next challenges, the next initiatives. So we need to be there. Why or how? I don't know how, but why is that we need to be like visible. And for us, research ops folks, this is key for us because we are not visible. We did
Yes.
a small event here in Brazil last month, focused on research ops only for research ops people. And that's something we had like we have committed everyone to try to not be anymore like this invisible people, this invisible team that it's on the backstage working for everyone without showing up.
Mm,
We need to change this, and we
mm,
have ways to change it.
yeah, applause.
Yeah, a lot of thoughts in my head. I'll leave it to you
And
now.
yeah, absolutely. And so I think that, finding ways to better align research findings with company strategy is kind of an ongoing challenge. And I think you shared some excellent ideas there. But what is research ops role in making that connection and kind of demonstrating impact? Is it research ops responsibility to be putting forward those research findings? Is it research ops responsibility to say, hey, researcher, you need to be finding opportunities to do
Mhm.
this, and here are some methods to do it? Like, what's the supportive structure there so that you can better demonstrate to, I guess, executives this connection between operational excellence, research outcomes, and business impact?
Mhm. I'll be very realistic in my answer. So let's think about some different scenarios. The first scenario, I'm on the research ops team, and I don't see any of my researchers and designers showing impact of their tasks in their interviews
Cool.
or their questionnaires.
Cool.
That's tough because if they're not doing it, will I be like valuable in my research ops
Yeah.
function? Not
Mm,
anymore. So I
yeah.
need them to to develop my work. So
Yes.
that's the biggest red flag. Um, that's something that motivated us to create this spreadsheet because the researchers themselves, and when I say researchers, think about people who do research in the end, okay? So these people, they want to do that, but they don't know how, or they don't have time to do that. They don't have time to build that spreadsheet. They don't have time to think about how they can show it. So the research ops um, focus in a scenario like this is to build this spreadsheet, is to build
Yes.
the training, is to help them to not think too much about it and just do something. Of course, bringing them to the discussion and building everything together. That's something we did. We wouldn't do anything without them. But yeah, that I think that we need to be smart about what's happening. The
Mm,
the thing that I really like about research ops is that like systematic vision and also this systemic vision about the company and about the team and about the UX function in general. And if we're seeing something that's not help is not happening that was supposed to happen, we need to uh, we, we need to embrace it. Of course, we cannot do everything. As I told you before, we have more than 600 designers. We we are not doing a lot of stuff, but we know that we are not doing a lot of stuff that we were
yeah.
supposed to do. It's like to have this level of understanding that we need to do trade-offs.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I think the point there around, if research is thrown into the void and no impact is made of it, it reminds me of that quote, if a tree falls in a forest, but no one's there to hear it, does it make a sound? And the answer's no. But um, to that point, I think that it's also, the through line through all of this is like finding ways to help researchers advocate for themselves and their impact. And then that's a positive reflection on the research ops function as well. And should hopefully help them come performance reviews. They can say, look at all this amazing work I've done and look at all the impact that this has had. And so it's a really supportive and enablement function there as well. And hopefully you can get your entire team raises and promotions as a result of the good work that research
Why
ops are
not?
doing. Why not, huh? Why not? It's not a bad ambition. But to that point, so really promoting the work of the researchers, but how do you take it down a level and show that there's operational excellence underpinning research? And so we've mentioned effort score and fantastic to see that that's, now done at Banco de Brazil. But for folks that are just getting started on this journey, how do you connect good work of research ops to fantastic research outcomes and subsequently impact for the business? Like, what's the research ops slice of that view?
So you've mentioned an expression that we are like I'm seeing more often in events, of course, focus on research ops people, which is like operational excellence or best practices.
Hmm.
I need to mention before anything that once again, we need to understand what we can do. It's not like we want to do, what we can do with the resources we have. another thing that we did in the bank was to like come together and understand our barriers. And the result of a lot of thinking processes and like a lot of things happening, workshops and planning sessions and so many things, was this confidence level that the main evidence that we had to know if the research a research project in um, acting all the guidelines and considering this were the reports. The big evidence for us that like what it was level of quality of the research done in that moment. So with that in
Mm.
mind, we created a process that we created a kind of some kind of an index
Hmm.
um, after reading and looking for like every report that it's like that people put in the repository. We have two people in the team looking every report that it's in the repository every month, and then we have this
Oh.
score to know like for example, I have the spreadsheet in my mind and I cannot explain it the way I'm
Mm.
seeing it. But yeah, we have different items that need to be checked in every repository. For example, I don't know, we have our GDPR here in Brazil, um, which
Mm.
is LGPD. We need this to be checked.
Yeah.
If the researchers are sharing the user like some PII or something like this. And we also have like a specific checkbox, which is to know if the researcher or the designer, writer, they understand the difference among finding, insight, quote, or something like this,
Mm.
recommendation. This is like a mess, and we gave trainings about that. So the report
Mm.
is the biggest evidence that we have to know if everyone learned well the everything we explained before. And we have like for every report we have the score. They don't know it. They know that we do it, but they don't know the score. We don't share the score. It's just for us to know like if
Mm.
everything is doing well, or if we see a specific checkbox not marked for every report, oh, we need to do a training about it. Oh, we need to do a communication about it. We need to do something about it because people are forgetting to do this. So yeah, this is the first part of it.
Well,
Yeah,
well,
we
they're
can break
forgetting to
it.
do it or they don't know how, Pedro, or they don't know how, right? And so, how do you have those conversations with them? How do you build trust in that function and build a team culture around, hey, we're here to support and educate you on what good looks like? Because that requires a level of psychological safety and trust in the
Hmm.
organization and trust that you're not going to say, like, you've touched on it there by saying we're not going to publish these scores because that could be used as a stick
Hmm.
when it sounds like the approach is very much more carrot focused and recognizing and identifying opportunities for upskilling. But how do you facilitate those conversations with folks so that they don't feel like you're punishing them for not having checked that box or not understanding the difference between a quote and an insight?
Yeah. So this process is super closed for our team. Only 5 people have access to the
Mm.
spreadsheet that we do this kind of evaluation and this scoring model. Um, we don't and we won't, for any reason, share the score with anyone, mainly with the person that um, has put the report in the repository, because it's like it's not going to take us anywhere. It's like just going to be a feedback about one specific thing that happens. Of course, we have a specific communication for people who don't follow the law. This is something that it's
Right.
like non-negotiable. If you shared something that was not supposed to be shared for the entire company, and when I say for the entire company, I'm saying like imagine if we have more than 600 designers, how many people we have in the bank? It's more than 40,000 people. Um, so we say you need to take care of it. We are removing your report from the repository. Please check it out, change it, or remove something, and
Mm,
then
mm,
tell us we can put it again. This is the only case we tell people that something was not right. The other things, like if they messed up, showing like recommendations, findings, if they said a quote was something that was not something, those best practices in general,
mm,
we won't share with them. We use it for our understanding and for our prioritization of what we need to do or create for them to not make these mistakes anymore in the future.
mm.
This is key for us. And this is something that I really believe in, that we need to take a lot of, we need to be very sensitive with people, and also not to be seen as a police,
Mm.
like in the company, like a supervision of anything. We we wouldn't like to be seen like that, to be seen like that. So we're not going to be doing this kind of stuff. This is non-negotiable for us. Does that
Yep.
make sense?
Yeah. That makes a ton of sense. And I think that um, just that idea of aggregation of, first of all, categorizing what good looks like and having a clear definition about what that is, and then amazingly having the resources to go through and have a look at all of the reports that are being produced, and assuming that all of the research that's done results in reports, which it sounds like it is. That sounds like a fantastic system and just
And
good
Harry,
practice. And then towing that line between being a stick and a carrot there.
and just one thing, it's unbelievable and it's crazy to see that a report can show the level of the quality of the research done, like at that moment. It's crazy to see like this. For example, in our reports template, we ask people to share about, for example, how many people they interviewed, how these people,
Mm,
this amount of people were divided by groups, how they were recruited, from like which place of the country they are. And it's crazy because in the page 2, page 3, we already know like, okay, people like they have done this big research only talking up with, I don't know, 8 people, 7 people. We know that I'm not jumping in this qualitative research issue, that people think that only to talk about 5 people, 6 people are not enough. I'm not saying this. I'm saying that for a very big project, they only did something that was not like it's not good the way it was.
yeah,
So it's not the reports
lack some
per
rigor.
se,
Yeah, lack
it's
some rigor.
something bigger. Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. And I'm just conscious of the time, and all of this connects so closely to leadership and standard setting that exists within the organization, and really, that human side of leadership that I think that you're demonstrating the way that you approach and work with researchers. And so, how do you think about that side of the work? And just quickly, because I want to leave a couple of questions at the end. And so, yeah, how do you think the human leadership in research ops and how you need to deal with team to get the best out of them.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, something I already mentioned, it's about to be in a team that it's seen as invisible, such as other teams are invisible. We're not like the only ones. And the company cannot have just teams and people being visible, of course. It's a mix. That's why we have different teams and different disciplines. But this is something that I've just learned well when I started leading a research ops team. That is something like, okay, you have enabled these people to do their jobs. They're doing their jobs. They were successful doing their jobs, and they will not mention that you helped them. So
Mm,
this motivation thing that misses in the majority of times, like so many times it happens. And we need to create an environment as a small team of research ops that we like today. My team, I can share about my experience, of course, but we are in a moment that we don't expect to be recognized about those stuff because we know that we did a very important job and that we have
mm,
those metrics and that we have those results, that we help the center of excellence to jump from 1 to 5 in a specific score or something like this. So we know that we are valuable and we are showing the value for the ones that needs to see the value of our work.
yes. Mm,
Um, that's something that's like it was a switch in my mind. When I was leading research teams, it means people doing research. Those things usually happened as well, but the researcher was more there, like they like this person could knock on the product team door and ask them what they were doing. Something that I personally try to do, and sometimes it really happened, and it was really good to see it happening. Was, for example, when the product team presents a new feature or a significant change of something in the product that we had a researcher involved. The researcher can also share about something in that meeting, that big meeting, or in that video created about the this new feature launch, for example. That's something that the leader can advocate for their team as well. But I
mm.
don't like, yeah, it's it's challenging and it depends on a lot of factors, size of the team and how is the company culture. But these are some things that I did in the past.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's a lovely note to finish on because we are at time. Uh, but having confidence in the leadership of the team stems from having confidence in your own contribution. And so making sure that we are setting up the research ops function to have those measurements in place, to have an understanding about what value they're delivering, and to be doing the work to understand that impact. So we are at time now. So I do just want to say a big thank you to Pedro for joining us today. Fantastic to hear your insights and as we've seen throughout the chat today, Pedro has produced a lot of content. A lot of it is now on the Great Question blog as well. So if you want to learn more about what Pedro is up to, you can follow him on LinkedIn, read any of the blog pieces on the Great Question blog, and please do stay in touch. And if anybody else would like to learn about Great Question, we would love to share some information with you on that front as well. But before I let you go, special thanks to Carly, who's been our wonderful producer in the background, our invisible support person, Pedro, which feels prescient to say in this context. So recognizing our invisible supporting Carly. And lovely to see you all today. Enjoy the rest of your Thursday. Thanks for your time. Take care.
Thank you. Bye bye.